I'm not on Zoom. No, I'm not on Zoom.
You're not on Zoom, on Facebook.
Facebook.
Hi, Aaron.
Hi, Aaron. If you're there, I just got on. I don't know. You got to give some time for people to get on. Okay, my friends. What a beautiful week this week is. This week was at the end of the week. We are started the journey of Avram Avinu, the journey of the patriarchs and the matriarchs, which is a beautiful journey with them every year. Starting from this week's portion, the portion of lech, lecha. And we see that not only is it beautiful to learn the journey of the patriarchs and the matriarchs, but God loves the journey. God loves it because He gives away 11 portions. The whole journey. Lech lecha vayera chaysara told us keeps on going until the end of the book of Bereshis, until the end of Genesis. Parshat, a beautiful journey of these three great men and women: Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. This is a beautiful story, but the Torah is not a book of stories. It's not only a book of stories. It's not that we should have children about the story about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is really something to tell us that we have to learn from the patriarchs. So the truth is, after the giving of the Torah, once the Torah was given at Mount Sinai, which happened hundreds of years after Abraham, why do we need to know the story of Abraham? It should have been left in the Medrash. There's even the story of Abraham that you find in the parshat is only a part of the story. If you really, as I always tell people, you really want to know the rest of the story, as it's called, you need to learn the Medrash. You need to look in the Medrash, which is part of the Gemara, which tells you the story behind the story. So, because even Abraham, you introduced him at 75 years old. This week's parsha, lech lecha, Abraham is 75 years old. So what happened to him until he was 75 years old? What's the story? What happened when he was born? And there are beautiful midrash, there are beautiful stories. There are truly beautiful stories of Abraham and Sarah. Who was Sarah? Who was Abraham? Their life together and the story behind their journey. It's a beautiful story. The Torah doesn't do that because the Torah really is Hayrah. Torah wants to give you something that you should learn from Abraham and Sarah and Isaac and Rebecca, and so to Yaakov Avinu and his 4 wives. So what is the lesson that we learn from Abraham? And how is it changed by the giving of the Torah? And once the giving of the Torah, why do we need Abraham? Why do we need the lesson from Abraham? You have the giving of the Torah, you have already the commandments. So you got the whole package already. Why do we need to go back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Why do we need to read this every year? And go back to their life, the way they live their life. So let's first understand the way Chassidut learns Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and what the Torah wants to really teach us of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's number one. What does the pasuk want to teach us? In our davening, every morning and every afternoon, every evening, in the first blessing of the Shemona Esrei, we say, Elokei Avram, the God of Abraham, Elokei Yitzchak, the God of Isaac, Elokei Yaakov, the God of Jacob. So these are important people. It's interesting that we say, so to say, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Why didn't it say the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Because there is the Torah. The Torah wanted to actually bring about the differences between Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There's a difference in the way they serve God. There's an important difference the way they serve God. And that's important. Is that important to us, the way they serve God, or not? But what is the differences the way Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob serve God? We're not going to go into each one. We're just going to go into Abraham because that's what we're dealing with today. Is Abraham, lech lecha, the portion of Abraham. So Abraham, as it says in text number 1 on page 22 of your books, of Shon Deber Shneisen, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, who lived in the 1800s, late 1800s, explained as follows: He said in our sages of blessed memory, he said Abraham, our patriarch, fulfilled the entire Torah before it was given. The Gemara, it's a Gemara. The Gemara says that Abraham did the entire Torah. The same is true with Isaac, and the same is true with Jacob. They fulfilled the entire Torah. So what is the difference between Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? And what is the meaning that they fulfilled the Torah? There was no mitzvah of tefillin. There was no mitzvah of kosher before the giving of the Torah. What is the meaning that they fulfilled the entire Torah? Abraham served God through his hospitality. So Abraham was chesed. Abraham served God to the concept of chesed, to the aspect of kindness. Isaac, by digging wells. Isaac was gevura, was the concept of severity, was to look within. And Jacob, by erecting rods at the riverbank. The whole story with Jacob, where it emphasizes Jacob, is a story where he, so to say, gets all his flock, gets all the flock of his father-in-law by making signs and symbols on the rods, and that's seemingly a very important part of the Torah. So you see, if you want to see the story, so you see Abraham is more the aspect of what is his journey in life is to have guests. Isaac, the Torah says, he was a well digger. That was he did. He continued to dig the wells of his father that the Philistines covered up. And Jacob was seemingly a shepherd, was a professional shepherd, professional herdsman, real professional herdsman. Knew how to manipulate the herd, to acquire different kinds of breeds and different kinds of designs in his herds, which is an interesting concept. Which is, seemingly, why would the Torah tell us this? And again, you have to look into the chassidus of the Torah, which it explains that each one did the service of God in a different kind of a way. Each one had a different aspect in the way they served God. So they didn't do the mitzvah the way we do mitzvahs today. They did all their mitzvot through the attribute of kindness. Abraham did it through the attribute of kindness. That means, in essence, Abraham had an emotional relationship with God. It's a more emotional relationship with God. And since his relationship with God was through the concept of kindness, therefore everything that he did was wrapped in kindness. That's why the hardest thing that he did was the Akedah, was the opposite of kindness. That's why that was the trial to kindness, right? To be able to do something that's the total opposite of your nature, that's a challenge. That's why it was the ultimate challenge to him. To be able to do something that's simply the opposite of his nature. Kindness. How does a kind person take his own child and bring him as a sacrifice? It doesn't make any sense to the concept of kindness. To Abraham, it was a great challenge because he was the concept of kindness. You with me?
Yeah, totally.
It would be a challenge to anybody, though.
Yeah, but especially to a kind person. Especially to a person that's his whole nature. That's what he came to the world, to serve God and to do everything through kindness. Through an open house, to serving people, feeding people, loving people, elevating people. It was all kindness. That's what he did. He was the first Chabad house. Open to everybody, fed everybody, welcomed everybody. He was unjudgmental.
And none of them were Jews.
Whatever, because there was no Jews. So at that time, his service was to the world. So his service was to the world. Trust me, this Chabad is open. I don't know who comes in, Jews or not Jews or whatever. We're non-judgmental. We're kind. That's the truth. We're kind. That's the foundation of it. The concept of kindness. And that's why food is an important thing in a Chabad. You can't have a Chabad without food. Because Avraham Avinu, how do you reach out to another person? It's through food.
Yeah.
Right? The road to the man's heart is through his stomach. It's food.
Showing love.
So it's food, right? Food. Correct. That's why one of the principles of Yiddishkeit, one of the most important mitzvahs of Judaism is achnasas orchim, to have guests in your house, to give them food, to feed them food. So our patriarch worship God by nurturing their spiritual connection to God. That's in essence what it means. The way they serve God is by becoming better people, by simply becoming better individuals. So Abraham nurtured his kindness. He worked on his kindness. And through working on his emotion of kindness, that was his service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That was his service to God. It's an interesting concept because basically they were not commanded anything. How can he do anything else but through himself? That's why Abraham was a self-made man, really a self-made man, because he didn't have a parent to give him that direction. Isaac had parents, he had parents, Baruch Hashem. Jacob had parents and grandparents. But Abraham was a self-nurtured man.
The Torah describes his father as an idol worshiper.
Idol worship is the opposite of
They
him.
don't mention his mother.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. There is a medrash on it. Yeah, there is medrash on it. Yeah, sure. His name of the mother. But Terach was an idol worship. It was the opposite of what Abraham stood for. So Abraham really did everything on his own. He nurtured himself. That's one of the greatness of Abraham, that Echadai Avram. He was a self-made individual. And simply Abraham learned to serve God through himself. Because he was not commanded anything. He's only commanded, the first command that God gives him is the end of the portion. It says, circumcise yourself. He's already 99 years old. So Abraham was a true self-made man, and that's why it's important to us. But it's really about nurturing oneself. How does one nurture himself? How does one take his character that God gave him, which God gave him, that he was a chesed, that he was a kind person? How does one take that to the service of God? How does he had to figure that out? He had to really work on his kindness to be able to then use it out to serve God, and actually make others to serve God, as the Medrash says. So it was all about God. He wanted to bring God to the world, godliness to the world. And he did it through the acts of kindness. So the Medrash says, for example, he made a big meal, and then he would tell everybody to bench. He would say, everybody, okay, now you got to thank God. They would say, what do you mean, thank God? Well, thank you. You're the cook. Thank Sarah. She's a good cook. He would say, no, thank God. I don't need you to thank me. They would say, no, we don't believe in God. So we don't want to thank God. It's okay. If you want to thank me, I don't take thanks.
That'll be $50.
That'll be $50. I take credit card. I don't take thanks. I take money. I don't need your thanks. If you want to pay me, you got to pay. If you want to thank me, you got to pay. And we roll them up a bill. A big bill. So now, say either you thank God or you pay the bill. One or the other. Because I don't take thanks. I take money. In God we trust, the rest pay cash. So, you need to pay cash. So they would thank God. And slowly he got people involved in thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's the way he did it. So he did it through the acts of kindness.
So is that kind of having something to do with tzedakah?
Yeah. He got people, he got tzedakah, he gave it for free. For example, Abraham, whose soul was characterized by kindness, served God with kindness, and therefore invited guests. The same applies to Isaac with his wells and Jacob with his rods. So each one, you have to, you can go and Chassidut explains each one, how each one served God through his own nature. So Isaac was a total opposite of his father. Isaac was more of his avodah was not the aspect of kindness. You don't see that he did that in the world. He was more inner person. He was not a guy who traveled the world. He was not this great speaker. He was not this, magnet that everybody came to. If you wanted to work with Isaac, you needed to sit down in serious learning. serious study. We're going to dig wells. We're going to go deep into the subject. We're not going to. Therefore, I think Abraham was more successful in the aspect of becoming this magnet in the world, world domination. Well, Isaac was more in Israel. He stayed in Israel. He didn't leave Israel. And if you wanted to serve God, you had to come to him. He wouldn't travel to you. And Jacob, again, comes back to be a middle between the Isaac and the Abraham. He does travel, but he has the mixture of them both.
Wait, what's the... So Abraham is Chesed and Yitzchak
Is Gevurah,
Gevurah,
and Yaakov is Tiferes, is beauty. Tiferes. Mercy. So this is the story. I mean, this is basically that the Torah gives off, as I said, 11 portions. To be able, and a couple portions to Abraham, we should go into the story of Abraham. We should learn from Abraham the attribute of chesed, the concept of kindness, the aspect of one important emotional things in a human being, the concept of his kindness. What is kind? What is to be kind? Because Abraham was very kind. He fed his guests, but then he forced them to bless God. So it's a little bit of a right. If you don't thank God, you're going to pay money. That doesn't sound exactly kindness. But so Abraham had kindness with a purpose. There was not just kindness. He had kindness with a purpose. There was an agenda to his kindness. He wanted Jews. There were no Jews. He wanted humanity to thank God. You with me?
Oh, yeah.
This all changed, seemingly. This all changed. At Sinai, nobody's asking for your emotions, seemingly. God is saying, I want you to, these are the 630 commandments. I don't care if you're in a good mood or in a bad mood. I don't care if you're happy or you're unhappy. I don't care if you feel good or don't feel good. I want you to do the mitzvah. I want you to do the mitzvah. So seemingly, in a way, he's taken, Sinai has changed the agenda. Right? At Sinai, God gave us accountable mitzvahs. Meditation and intentions are indeed still required, but action is primary. So God says, good, meditate. I'm not taking away meditation from you. But the most important thing is action. And now I don't care. I mean, I do care, but it's not the most important thing to me. How do you feel about it? Right? I'm going to wait for your feelings to come into action, that you should do action. I'm going to wait for you to feel good. I'm going to wait for you till you're emotionally stable. No, Torah says you should put on tefillin, you should keep kosher, you should do all these mitzvahs, whether you're stable, you're unstable, you're rich or poor, you're happy or unhappy, you're satisfied or unsatisfied, you have a mitzvah. So seemingly all change. And with respect to action, we're all equal. That's the beauty of a mitzvah, right? We all put on tefillin. You had a minyan here today, 20 people. Everybody's different emotionally. Right? But we all did the mitzvah together. We all sat and davened together. We all put on tefillin together. And that's the beauty of the mitzvah. It brings an equality to everybody. If everybody is gonna have to do the mitzvah emotionally to the way he wants to do the mitzvah, we'll have to have different synagogues. These are for the emotional people. These are for the unemotional people. These are for the happy people. These are for the unhappy people. No, we all get together. Who cares about emotions? Put your emotions aside. We're coming to be together. We're coming to do the mitzvah together. So that's the beauty of a mitzvah. It equalizes everybody. It brings equality to everybody. But doesn't it take the character away? Doesn't it take one's character? What happened to the character of the mitzvah? What happened to the character? And if the character is not important, why mention the patriarchs? Seemingly everything changed. At Matan Torah, the command became important, not the emotions. Even though the emotions should be there, but it's not important. It's seemingly not the most important thing. The most important thing is the action. So if the action is the most important thing, why even go back to the patriarchs, which didn't have any commandments, which are not commanded? They didn't have one mitzvah. Even though they did all the mitzvahs, they didn't have one mitzvah.
You just said the first milah.
Yeah, but still that, the 99 years old. He was given one mitzvah. So they had one mitzvah ultimately. They didn't have 613 commandments. Even after that mitzvah, they didn't have any 600. They didn't have the other 612 commandments.
But whereby you create a character with a Ten Commandments, you create a character.
I understand. I agree with you. But ultimately, what's the most important thing since Matan Torah? The aspect of action.
Right.
That's not. I'm not arguing the character is important. There's no argument in that. Because self-understood, it's beautiful to have a positive character, and you'll soon see their importance. But seemingly Matan Torah came to take away that importance. So we go through all 11 weeks about the beauty of Chesed, the beauty of ones that they did it on their own, and everything was done through their own. Why could we continue doing that? Right? Take away Matan Torah, God forbid, and we'll continue to serve God on our own. Everybody will take their character and serve God the way they want to serve God. It might be beautiful. Might be beautiful. And everybody will serve God in their own way, and we'll all reach up to heights of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. No, Matan Torah seemingly did a circumcision on that whole concept, and it said, okay, I want you to do what is right. That's what I want you to do. Yeah.
When you say Mountain Torah and you're saying that everything changed there, could it have been based on the fact that God led the people out of Egypt and the people continued, even after seeing all the miracles and even after seeing everything, continued to sin against God, continued to put their emotions before God and all. In other words, he realized that structure.
But you see, the structure didn't help anyway, because you still have that same situation. You're always going to have a situation where some people are gonna sin, and that's what happened since the beginning of time, since the beginning of Matan Torah. You had those who rebelled against the Torah, and you have that until today. You have those who keep the Torah and those who don't, for whatever reason. So you still have that kind of situation. There's no forceful situation. I mean, God says these are the commandments. He gives human beings free choice. He doesn't take away choice from the human being, even though he commanded upon them 613 commandments. He asked even the Jews at Mount Sinai to choose or not to choose. So really, the concept of Matan Torah changes the agenda. That's what I mean. It changes the agenda. That God was looking for more of an action based concept than an emotional characteristic religion, to more of an action based religion. And it stays that way till today. That we are an action based religion. Hamaisa Ueke, the action is the most important thing. So really the question would be, do we need character? Do we need character? Can we fulfill our mission without having one's character involved? Without having any emotional attachment to it or not? Yeah.
I just want to say, and I think it's like not very funny, but it's also funny. We saw a movie, Lansky, the Jewish criminal from some years ago. If you lose your health, no. But if you lose...
He serves angels. Right? He serves angels. He did, even though they're angels don't need to eat. Right? But he still did the service to angels. By him, that was a mitzvah. Today, that wouldn't be a mitzvah. Because there's no mitzvah to serve angels. But for the sake, right, there's a mitzvah to serve people. But to Abraham, since it was base character, so it didn't make a difference whether they were people or angels. Because it was about his character. So he showed the act of kindness even though they didn't eat. But today it wouldn't be a mitzvah to serve angels. So if you would have, for example, analogy, you would have angels and people come to you, you would have to serve the people. Because angels don't need to eat.
Did he know?
So even though it's an act of chesed, whether he didn't know, at the point he didn't know. But that's the point. It's not a mitzvah whether you know or you don't know.
He did, but he.
So for example, I'll show you another example. That would be, for example, in halacha, in another way, if somebody loses $1, and a poor man behind him finds $1, did he do the mitzvah or not? And the answer is yes. Because the mitzvah is not about you giving tzedakah. The mitzvah is about him receiving tzedakah. And since you gave him tzedakah, even though you didn't even know that you lost $1, whatever, it's not important. You gave him $1. So it's not so important about you. It's about that you did the mitzvah. So that is, how can I refine my character of giving if I didn't even know that I lost $1? Fine would be that somebody asked me for $1. And now I have a struggle to give the $1 or not to give the $1. And I overcome my struggle and I give him the $1. Either overcome my struggle, I say, listen, I'm going to do it for the mitzvah. But over here I lost $1 and I still have done the mitzvah. But in that situation, Abraham would have not received the mitzvah. Right? In that situation, if Abraham would have lost $1 and somebody else would have picked up the $1, a poor man even, Abraham would not, because he didn't refine himself by giving the $1, because he didn't even know that he lost $1. So you see there's a difference in that aspect. So the Torah wanted really, the guy should get the $1. Should you give him the $1? And 100%, but really the mitzvah is more important, that he got the $1. And it came through you. Whether you knew that you gave the $1, you didn't know you did the $1. So this emphasized the question even more. Why do we focus so much on after Matan Torah, why do we focus so much on the patriarchs? The Torah was given already. It's an action-based. The Eibishter wants it action-based. So why is it important, the concept of the patriarchs? But there's a deeper question. Let's go to text number 2. The Rebbe, so this is a sikha based on the Rebbe, says every detail in the Torah, a book of instructions, is a lesson to us post-Sinai, how to better serve God. So if this is the case, why does the Torah spill so much ink on a story of how our patriarch worshiped God? If their method of worship was different from our contemporary method of worship, how can their story teach us how to serve God better? And that's really the question. That's the Rebbe's question. So he spends 10 portions discussing the patriarchs, when really that's not our agenda. Really, it's not our total, real essence agenda. Our agenda is to go and follow Torah mitzvahs, to follow God's wishes, and that's really our agenda. You want to yourself, hopefully you'll become a better person. It should make you a better person. It should refine you. That is the extra credit. That's the extra beauty. But that's really not, seemingly, not the essence of the situation. So really, to answer this question, we need to understand what is the concept of Torah mitzvahs. We really need to understand what was the accomplishment of Matan Torah. What did God accomplish with the giving of the Torah? And that's really will answer this question. So, why did God Why did God give the Torah and the mitzvahs to Jews? What would you say? What was the real reason why God gave the Torah to the Jews?
A book on how to live amongst society, on how to live a good life.
Okay. So it's about how we should live. How should we become better? How should we live a better life? Right? That's what you answered. How to live a better life. Okay, yes?
I was going to say, because he knew we'd be good stewards of it.
We'll be good stewards of it. Okay. Yes?
Torah is the living word of God. God is infinite. We're finite. We had to make a connection. Didn't we have to have
Okay.
We have to establish?
How do we make a connection with God? Beautiful. Yes?
I think that people, by and large, don't do things that they don't have to do. You have to do the mitzvot. You have to do it.
Okay. Good. Yeah? Okay. Beautiful answers, everybody. Beautiful answers.
It's the instruction.
But we are humans. And we'll never be perfect. We are finite, and God is infinite. So how is it possible that God wanted that humans should become perfect? We're never going to be perfect. We would never ever do something in a perfect way. It's impossible. So how is it possible that God would demand on us to make this world a perfect world? We would become perfect. We would even connect to Him. You mentioned we would connect to Him. How is it possible for a finite entity to connect to infinite things? It's impossible. It's impossible to demand on a finite entity to connect to an infinite entity, because it's impossible for finite to connect to infinite. So it would be asking for something for the impossible.
But wasn't it a gift?
So that is the answer. It's not our connection to God, it's His connection to us. There's a big difference in that. God is not asking me perfection, because it's impossible perfection. God is not asking me for the I should connect. I cannot connect nothing. I'm an infinite entity. How can I connect I'm a finite entity. How can I connect to an infinite concept? It's impossible. The Abishur is telling us, do A, and I will connect. You leave the connection to me. So if you think, or I think, that I'm the one who's connecting, or I'm the one then you're dreaming. Because you don't understand the difference between a finite thing and an infinite aspect. How is it possible for a finite thing to connect to an infinite? How is it possible for an imperfect thing to connect to a perfect thing? It's impossible. And that's what God is not asking for humanity something that's impossible. The Abish is asking for something. He's not asking you to become perfect. He's not asking you to do the thing perfect. He's asking you to do something. And by doing something, He'll do the connection. He'll connect. And an infinite thing can connect to something that's not perfect. Right? Because to infinity, there's no difference between something that is perfect and something that is imperfect. Right? To infinity, is there a difference between a person that's on level 1 and a person that's on level 100? Both 1 and 100 are the same. To infinity. There was once a student who asked the Rebbe, said, I'm not a religious Jew. So, if I'm not a religious Jew, So then I'm to the religious Jew, I'm imperfect. I'm not a good Jew. Am I a good Jew? So the Rebbe said Yiddishkeit is like a ladder. When you at least see two people on a ladder, one is going up, and let's say the other guy is going down. Who's higher on the ladder? So the person told me, the guy's up. The Rebbe said, the guy who's going down, the guy who's going up is higher than the guy who's going down. Depends where you're going. Godliness is to go up. Yiddishkeit is about going up. Doesn't make a difference where you're on the ladder in the aspect of your going up. And he brings out a beautiful statement of the Gemara in text 3a. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says about Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses. B'tchila ya Moshe lamed Torah u'mashcha ad shenitan lei b'matana. Like you just mentioned. Rabbi Yochanan said in the beginning Moses would study the Torah and instantly forget it. He was learning and learning. He couldn't understand. He couldn't get it. Couldn't get everything they learned. He forgot right away. He learned, couldn't get it. Until God gave him as a gift. He gave him the gift of learning Torah.
So we all have to.
That's it. So that Moshe Rabbeinu can learn Torah. I mean, Torah is given by God. How can even Moshe Rabbeinu receive something that's godly? It's impossible. He can try and try and try and try. He couldn't get it.
You mean the gift of understanding?
Understanding, receiving. The gift of understanding is receiving. Gift of understanding, gift of wisdom. The Eibishter gave us a gift. What do you think? You can sit down, or I can sit down, open a Chumash and understand what God wants to tell me in the Chumash? It's a gift. And that's what the blessing of the Torah is the gift. Nice and Atayra. God gave us a gift. That's what we say in Adavin. So the Eibishter wanted to give a gift to the Jewish nation. Therefore he gave them Torah mitzvahs. He gave them Torah mitzvahs. He didn't give it to the patriarchs. He gave it to every Jew. At Matan Torah. As a parshat states, and he gave Moses, when he concluded to speak, he gave it. It's impossible to have it without God giving it. That's where the Torah is considered a gift. It's not something that any one of us can think that we can acquire it. We have the brain capacity to be able to acquire it. It's only that the only reason why you might have some kind of brain capacity to acquire it because God gave it to you as a gift. He gave you the wisdom. He gave you the capacity of this wisdom. He gave you the capability. It's a gift. So in text number 3b, look at that. At Mount Sinai, this is the Rebbe, the Bavitcher Rebbe says, at Mount Sinai, God gave Moses his Torah in a format that transcends anything that created being can absorb. Therefore, Moses would learn the Torah and forget it until God granted him as a gift. God, who is omnipotent and can link the infinite and the finite, gifted his infinite Torah to a finite created being. Only God can give you that gift. Nobody can give you that gift. How can anybody give you an infinite gift? Only infinity can give you an infinite gift. The same holds true with every Jew. We too can absorb and preserve God's Torah because He granted it to each one of us as a gift. So therefore, my friends, this is the very powerful, maybe the Rebbe that gave us all a very powerful gift also. And he brings down the Medrash from text number 4, page 26. Rabbi Yosi said, God said to the Jewish people, Open for me a single door of repentance as wide as a needle. I'm not asking you. I'm asking you for one thing. I'm going to give you the gift. But you need to receive the gift. Do you need to be the genius to receive the gift? Do you need to be perfect to receive? No. I'm not demanding on perfection. I'm not demanding 100% either. I'm demanding to open it up like a needle, like the head of a needle. Open up your mind like the head of a needle. You'll receive and I'll do the rest. My infinity can fit in a needle, in the head of a needle. By me, there's no difference between the head of a needle and the widest entity in the world. There's no difference to me. To you, there might be a difference. Because you can only open up the head of a needle. What I tell you, right now, this the capacity. You only can open up yourself to like the head of a needle, seemingly. Because maybe every person is different, right? So every person, don't be somebody else, right? Because every person has a relationship with God. Be yourself. Open up yourself to whatever level, whatever capability you can open up yourself to. But to never open yourself, you'll never receive this gift.
I have a question, Rabbi.
Yeah.
As you proceed and you say open up to different levels or whatever, is there a set course or is it different for each person in the sense that you move in how,
Every person's different. There's not a one fits all.
Okay.
In the aspect of my service, that I open myself, in the mitzvah, we all have the same mitzvah. I don't have a certain mitzvah, you don't have that mitzvah. I have to keep kosher, you have to keep kosher. I have to daven, you have to daven. I have to keep Shabbat, you have to keep, we all have the same mitzvah. It's the same, we all have the same mitzvah. But the way each one, that in my service, the way is important that I am involved, every person is going to be different. There's no two people are going to be the same.
So the journey is different for each.
100%. Because you might be able to I might be able to only open up like a needle. You may be able to open up like bigger than a needle, hopefully. So in essence, the Eibishter wants a human being to do the first move. The truth is that every action that I do is like a needle to God. Let's be honest. Every action that I do, even if I do something humongous, God is infinite. So what's the difference to God, humongous or a head of a needle? Everything that I'm going to do is going to be to God. And to God, God said everything in me is humongous. There's no small act to me. There's no small, there's no big. Everything is big. As I always say, the mitzvah tzedakah is a penny. That's the mitzvah. To the poor man, it's a big deal. Whether you give him a penny or you give him $1. But to God, to the mitzvah, a penny, what's the difference to God of $1 or $1 million or $10 million and a penny? If the Eibishter said, I want the Jew to give tzedakah, to me, the difference, if you're doing it for the Eibishter, if you're doing it for God, what's the difference of a penny or $1 billion? To God, a penny and $1 billion is the exact same number. They're both nothing. And they're both everything. This is a very important thing. Because a person might take this, say, okay, I'm going to do nothing. I can do very little. Right? What to God, even a little is good. Right? So I'll do nothing. I'll do very little. Right? You can walk away. You say, what's the difference? Oh, I have to do a lot? No, what's the difference to God? You do a little or a lot.
So that's why character is important.
That's why very good. Very good. Very good. Very good. And that's why the next statement of the Zohar is important. Text number 5. Look what the Zohar says. The Zohar says in text number 5. I remember Rabbi Yossi said, the divine presence only rests in a place that is complete. Not in a place that's incomplete. And not in a place that's defective. Very important statement. The Eibishter lives in a place where you try your perfection. If you're going to live a life of incompleteness, then the Shekhinah does not rest. The Shekhinah, the presence of God wants that a person should do his utmost, his completeness. Not somebody else's completeness, not God's completeness. Because that would be impossible. It would be impossible to do somebody else's completeness. It would be impossible to do God's completeness. God, the Shekhinah, the presence of God, wants my completeness. If I'm defective, work on it. Become indefective.
To me, that's kind of cruel, like the Baal Tshuva who takes on one mitzvah is defective.
We're all defective.
According to that definition, that Hashem's presence doesn't...
No, because at that moment, your completeness of today, you're doing your best that you can do today. Everybody is defective in this situation. But I'm doing the best I can do today. And I'm complete today.
So that's
You have to be honest. You have to be honest. It's self-insert. It's the concept of self-honesty. If you want to lie to yourself, you can't lie to yourself, you can't lie to God. So a person has to do the best he can do today. Not what he can do tomorrow, not what he did yesterday. The best I can do today.
Because today is all you got.
Correct.
Right.
So look at the Rebbe says in text number 6. At Sinai, God gifted us with his infinite transcendence. But first, our patriarchs had to pave the way by reaching the highest level of spiritual refinement that a human being can reach. Right? Abraham, God didn't come to Abraham and say, wait a second, you have chesed, what about Gevurah? Because that was not him. That was his nature. Right? He didn't come to Isaac and say, wait a second, you're a Gevurah. Why are you not like your father? That's why it says, lech Avram, lech Yitzchak, lech Yaakov. The God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. God said, Abraham is chesed. I want to see his refinement in chesed. I'm not going to ask him about Gevurah. It's not him. Isaac is Gevurah. He needs to refine himself in Gevurah. I'm not saying, but why are you not like Avraham Avinu? You're not Avraham Avinu. You're Yitzchak. Why are you not like, why is Yaakov not like Avraham Yitzchak? He's not, he's Yaakov. What? He's Jacob.
Yeah, but he's
So he's a different person. He's Tiferes. He's a different purpose and a different character.
Why did they call him Tiferes?
Because he was a mixture of Abraham and Isaac. He was a mixture. He was a mixture of them both. So Tiferes, his beauty, is a mixture of two entities.
Okay.
So that's why he's called Tiferes. So Yaakov Avinu did his service through his character. Maybe you could say, oh, have another character. Be somebody else. No. Yaakov Avinu used out his character to the best of his capacity. But what do we learn from the patriarchs? Take your character and work on it. Take your character, make it a better character. Because the more you're going to be a better person, the more you're going to work on your character and develop your character, the more you're going to have you're going to be able to have that true relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because if you're going to be a defected vessel, it's going to be hard to put in this vessel, this relationship between you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu by doing the mitzvah. It's going to be done in a defected vessel. So listen, he says, but first our patriarch had to pave the way, by reaching the highest level of spiritual refinement that humans can reach. Only after they maximize their capacity, did God gift the descendants with the Torah. The gift of the infinite, transcendent, that exceeds human capacity. The same is true our relationship with God. For the gift of God's transcendence to manifest in us through our Torah mitzvahs, we must first refine our spirituality to the maximum capacity. Only then can we transform it into instruments that channel and reveal the transcendence of God's Torah that was gifted to us. That's a gift. The transcendence is a gift. It's impossible for any Jew to transcend himself if it wasn't a gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So in a way, it's like it's a two-way street relationship over here. It's our relationship to God, and then God's relationship to us. So if we refine ourselves, we work in our character, like the patriarchs, that's how the Eibishter responds to us. But we need to first refine ourselves. We need to become better, we need to become more in tune. We need to work on our nature. Every person is different. So every person needs to take his talents, or what he has, his nature, and refine it. Become it, fine-tune it. Use Torah, use mitzvahs, use whatever it takes to fine-tune it. Be the better you. Do the best you can do as you.
So what if you're the better you? And I'm saying this from personal experience, okay? Not that I'm so great, but what if you're the better you?
Right.
And you're expressing that better you, and you're expressing that highest level you can possibly, at the moment, be
Right.
you. And someone else is just so insulting and
Has to be outside chatter. Outside chatter. There'll always be outside chatter. Always be outside chatter. You have to look at it as outside chatter. The problem is it's not outside chatter. It's affecting me.
yes.
That's what that you're allowing that. You're allowing that to affect you. That's your choice. You cannot stop outside chatter. That's living in a bubble. There'll always be somebody out there that's going to say, is going to bother you. And if you're going to live in a world that's not going to be out, nobody out there is going to allow to bother you, you're living in a non-real world. But it's outside chatter. There'll always be outside chatter. It's fine. I have no problem with outside chatter.
Be a Marine the best you can be.
Correct. 100%. But again, that's an important question because we take the outside chatter and we let it. The Rebbe even explains the outside chatter is your animalistic soul too. Is outside chatter. You cannot let this chatter become an inside information. It's outside chatter. People like to talk. People like to say things. My animalistic soul likes to say things too. Everybody has to have an opinion, and that's outside chatter. And you cannot let outside chatter affect you.
That's very good advice.
It is. I personally have a problem with that.
You're
You're
sensitive.
sensitive.
Yeah, but that sensitivity is also outside chatter.
What is?
That sensitivity that I'm sensitive is also outside chatter. It's your mechanism, your outside chatter. I'm sensitive. What are you sensitive for? It's outside chatter. It's not real. It's not real. It's not real. You cannot always be sensitive. You have to be proud of who you are. As long as you know you're doing your best, there's nothing to listen to outside chatter and even inside that is really should be outside chatter. If you're not doing your best, go and do your best. But if a person is doing his best, nobody should be able to. The Rebbe once told a Rav, I think it was, I forgot who it was, a big rabbi, who came to him and said he wants to do something, but he's going to be criticized. The Rebbe answered him, he'll always be criticized. Any good thing you want to do in the world, you're going to have criticism. But if you know you're doing the right thing, you don't have to, you ignore criticism.
That's like the shield.
And you cannot, right? Yeah.
You have the truth. And it
Correct.
doesn't matter.
That's correct. You can't let outside influence affect you if you're doing the right thing. So that's very important, I think, to what his next statement is going to be. Because the Rebbe keeps on going back and forth. Because ultimately we see that it actually is a statement that a broken vessel is a good thing. Here I say, I need perfection. And then the next statement say, is that if you ask, text number 7, but doesn't God only dwell in a broken place? Right? In a broken heart. Right? That's a famous statement.
If you're whole, you don't need.
No, so how do you put the two together? In a broken vessel, as the verse says, I will dwell amongst the crushed and the humble of spirit. So, that means you need to be. It doesn't.
I get it.
There's an expression of the Kotzker Rebbe who said, there's nothing more complete than a broken heart. And there's nothing more straighter than a leaning ladder.
You're gonna fall down.
So how do you put the two together?
Because it's contradictory to what Rabbi Yossi said.
Right, correct. Right, contradictory. So the broken are the most complete of all of us because they lower themselves. Humility. That's where you need a lot of things that people say to themselves. And self-protection is their ego. That's where it needs to be broken.
Oh, absolutely.
That's where you need to have a broken spirit.
Absolutely.
So there, where the Eibishter cannot live in the midst of an egotist. So if anything needs to be broken, is humility. Is my ego. Humble yourself. If you understand this whole sikha, if you understand this whole concept that everyone wants to tell us, is ultimately that is, if you want to have a relationship with God, you have to have a relationship with God on God want to have a relationship with you or with me. It's not I'm going to make a relationship with God. Who am I to make a relationship with God? I'm a finite thing. I have struggles making a relationship with other finite entities. I'm going to be able to make a relationship with an infinite entity. It's ridiculous. So I'm not coming as an ego. I'm going to have a relationship with God. I'm going to do my best I can do. And God's going to have a relationship with me. I'm going to humble myself. It's not about me. God said that He's going to have a relationship with me. Not I am saying that this is that I am the one who creates this relationship, so to say. I'm the one who has the, so to say, the power of connect. It's a gift. The relationship is a gift. And if I think this relationship is something that I acquire for my own ego, God is looking for a contrite heart.
Yeah.
He's looking for that broken vessel. He's not looking for the guy who thinks that he can make this. It's up to him and he can do it, he can accomplish it. That's when the verse says, God dwells in a broken heart. That's where you should have a broken heart. Any other things, when it comes to yourself, try to you do your best. And feel complete. Feel that you're doing the best. And if you're not doing the best, then do the best. Baba Rebbe will always say, Frierdiker Rebbe said once, if somebody says something to you, then there needs to be two responses. If it's true, fix it. It's true. So what are you angry about? The guy said the truth. If it's not true, then it's rachmanis on him to say something not true.
Great.
But most of the time we get angry because it's true. And it's a chutzpah that somebody said the truth. And maybe he said it in public, the truth. And that's a chutzpah, bigger chutzpah. But that it's the truth, no, that doesn't bother me. That my ego doesn't bother me that it's the truth. I'm not going to change it.
Well, you still shouldn't say it because it's Lashon Hara.
That's his problem, not mine. That's where you have to feel bad. If it's true, it's not true. It's lashon hara, and it's rachmanas. It's his negative, not mine.
Right.
So that's it. If it's true, fix it. You should actually thank him. Maybe because of him, you're going to fix it. So a person should never say, I'm a broken vessel, I'm an incomplete thing. No, become a complete entity. You should become the best person you can be. There's no excuses why a person shouldn't become a better person. But your relationship with God loves not only God loves, God cannot dwell in a complete vessel. God only can dwell in a humble individual, in a broken vessel, so to say. Because for the infinite to connect with the finite needs to be broken. The finite needs to get out of his completeness, that he's complete. The finite has to say, I'm nothing. Then I can transcend and have an infinite relation. But if I'm something, like Moshe Rabbeinu, I want to understand the Torah. I don't need a gift. Don't give me any gifts. I'll do it on my own. I'll accomplish it in my own. You'll never accomplish it. Because you're finite. You can't accomplish. An infinite thing is impossible for a finite entity to accomplish. Break yourself. Humble yourself. So that's where the mitzvah is important. That's where the Matan Torah is important. Matan Torah teaches a Jew, be humble. Do the mitzvah. Why? Because you want infinity with the mitzvah. You're not trying to accomplish self accomplishment through the mitzvah. You're trying to accomplish a relationship with God. That's why the mitzvah is important. That's why the mitzvah is important. That with the humility, and that's where there's equality by Jew. We're all humble. We're all humble to God. Right? We might be all different emotionally. We might be all different financially. We might be all different physically. But to God, we're all humble.
Except one.
Who?
Except one.
No, don't say it.
I know, I'm not going to say it. But
So that's why by Jews, we don't call a person a chacham, a guy who has wisdom. We call him a talmid chacham, a student of wisdom. So we call even a sage a talmid chacham, a student of wisdom. Because to God, we're all students of wisdom. We're all students to God. Whether we're Moshe Rabbeinu or we're Zalman Boket. We're all students of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're all students to the wisdom of a
What
God.
is a tzaddik?
Tzaddik is nothing to do with his wisdom. Even a tzaddik is called a Talmud Chacham, a student of wisdom. In the concept of learning, he's a student. In the concept of his own, personally, he's a tzaddik. He has refined himself. He has simply become the best person that can be. That's a tzaddik. He's basically become the quintessential human being. Moses is called Ish Elokim. He was a man of God, half man. He was a man of God. What can be a better title than that? But to God, he was a simple student, like any other Jew who's a simple student. And that's why Moshe had humility. Because Moshe Rabbeinu took everything as a gift. He said, God gifted this to me. He could have gifted it to anybody else, just like he gifted it to me. That's humility. So that's where God is looking for and therefore, let's try to end this off. Rab Tzadok said, do not make the Torah a crown for self-aggrandizement. Right? Nor, it's just too big of a word. Nor spade with which you dig. Don't use it out for yourself.
I hate to do this, but I can't say
No problem. We have finished anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Let's end off
Nice seeing everyone.
with the text number 9, another beautiful statement of the Rebbe. Mental accuracy doesn't suffice to drill down to the ultimate truth of lecha. This is because the mind is not complete objective. This is very important. Its subtlety influenced by our mental temperament. For example, the house of Hillel often ruled lenient and the house of Shammai often stringent. Because Hillel was kind of a soul that temperament, while Shammai was severe. So you see that ultimately, you bring, if you're going to say, I understand halacha, you're going to bring some of your own temperament to that halacha. That's the way it is. Because you're human. So if you're going to accept the Torah only according to your intellect, or my intellect, ultimately it's going to be touched by who I am. That even Hillel and Shammai, that were two great sages, ultimately Hillel, since he was more of chesed, everything in his way he learned Torah was through chesed. It was channeled through his nature. And Shammai was more severe. Everything was tempered through his character severity. Although the mind seeks objective truth, thereby enabling us to understand alternative points of view, right? It's nevertheless contained by temper. It's still going to be, right? It's still going to be tempered. Therefore, you can have an argument with somebody, and even if intellectually you know the person's right, you will not give in. Why? Because you are important. Your way of knowledge, your way of thinking is important. So how did Hillel and Shammai ultimately come to a resolution? Even though they learned the Torah and the temperament, because they were bottled to the Eibishter. They were bottled to God. So Hillel and Shammai argued on something, and then when the halacha came like Hillel, Shammai did what Hillel did. Because he had bittul. He bottled to God, even though he said, no, I believe God says this. Right? They didn't argue. But since ultimately it was tempered by his nature, so ultimately when the halacha, the Jewish law came out like Hillel, Shammai did what Hillel said, like Hillel.
Wow. That sounds
Because their argument was about God. Because they were tzaddikim. To be able to argue for the sake of, not of the sake of self, but the sake of the truth. Imagine if you have an argument with your friend, and it's not about, you put yourself aside if you're really arguing about what is true.
In other words, no ego.
No ego.
In Hillel.
That is true. So we argued. Hillel argued with Shammai. They argued vehemently.
But no ego.
But it was no ego. Because they argued for God.
From both
And
of them.
both of them. If the halacha was like by Shammai, which happened a couple of times, Hillel followed by Shammai.
democracy.
And that's why, that's why ultimately Shammai is not wrong. Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai are both right. Because it was not about themselves. It was about God. Even though it was channeled through themselves, right? Hillel had a certain disposition to always look at things in that kind of way, while Shammai had a disposition to look at it in a different way because of their nature. They also learned the Torah through themselves. They didn't learn the Torah through something else. They learned it through their physical bodies and their physical mind. When automatically Hillel, we knew what way he's going to look. We knew already where Hillel's going to look at the thing. We know the way Shammai is going to look at the thing, and that's exactly what happened. But it was still with humility. That's why they were tzaddikim. They argued with humility. They didn't argue with arrogance. Because if they would argue with arrogance, they would never, even if the law came out like Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai would never do like Beis Hillel did. Because he disagreed with him. And he disagreed that God disagreed with him. Not that he disagreed with him, he disagreed that God disagreed with him. But that's the beauty. That's really the beauty. That's where you need to have a broken heart. To be humble. So that would be unbelievable. Imagine a relationship you have with your spouse, a relationship you have with somebody else, and you have a disagreement. And it should never ever come to a situation with his ego. But you both are arguing for the sake of a greater purpose. If you can imagine such a thing. Not arguing, which is a very difficult thing to accomplish, but that's where it's important to have humility. Not that you should give in your argument. Hillel never gave in, and Shammai never gave in. They never gave in, even if the halacha was. They did. Shammai followed Beis Hillel because that was the law, but not that he gave in his argument.
But how did they decide? Was it that they were always
Majority. There was ways of deciding halacha.
On the side of kindness?
No, it was the side of majority.
So there were other people involved in these conversations.
Hillel, the Academy of Hillel had a majority. They had always a majority. Democracy. It was a majority. That's why the whole story. The Gemara says it was once that there was a group of students of Beis Hillel came to visit Beis Shammai. They locked the doors, and they didn't let anybody out. And they debated the law, and then they had a majority. So the majority was like Beis Shammai that day. They passed a couple of laws. That was a majority. But that didn't make Beis Hillel wrong, or that didn't make Beis Shammai, because that's the point. We can have an argument, we can have a disagreement, because two people don't think the same, and they don't look at the same things the same, but there still should be humility.
Is there something you can tell us when Shammai was right?
Chanukah, you come into Chanukah, Shammai was right. You have Chanukah. Coming up the holiday of Chanukah, that was a big argument, Shammai Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel says you write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Beis Shammai says you do 8, 7, 6, 4, 5.
It was accepted only by Hillel.
No, every Jew throughout the world writes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's the law.
That's what Hillel said.
And that's what Beis Shammai did.
Shammai accepted it.
Accepted, because that's the law.
Oh, I see.
The law is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
What year were they around?
Now you need to Google. I'm very bad in
But
history.
they were quite.
This is before. This is a long time before the Gemara. This is in the time of the Mishnah.
Okay.
This isn't before the Mishnah. This is in the time of Hillel lived in the time of the Beis Hamikdash,
Right.
time of the Second Temple.
So then how does Hanukkah didn't come till way after that, didn't it? Or
Yeah. No, it happened in the time of the Second Temple.
Okay, I'm sorry. I need it.
I'm not good in history, so you have to look that up. So that's important. So ultimately, the mind is a tricky thing, because the mind brings a person to be self-ego. That's the way I think. So the mind to have to be able to have humility is the ultimate accomplishment in the journey. In this journey, it's only when we have a complete self-effacement that we can transcend our disposition and inclination. This is the only way for our mental capacity to arrive at the ultimate truth of the matter. See in the bottom, let's end it off, text number 10. The Torah ruling is different because halacha reflects divine will, which is the ultimate truth. That's the beauty of Hillel and Shammai. Because they didn't argue on their mind. They argue on what God said. Thus, each one said this is what God said. But it was about God, it's not about themselves. Absolute truth drills down through all perspectives and is valid across entire spectrums. Those inclined to leniency and those inclined to stringency, the truth is compelling to all parties. The Eibishter is truthfully in both. Right? God can handle stringency and can handle leniency. Both are true. So that's why Hillel and Shammai, both are true. Therefore, when we discover that the Torah's halachic protocol dictates a ruling that is contrary to our opinion, we re-examine the matter with utter humility. Right? Because you might not know, you're saying that you might not know the halacha, you might not know the Torah. So how can you say something that you decided is different? Who are you? In so much as we humbly accept the divine will, we immerse ourselves into the subject with stubborn determination until our opinion is authentically realigned with halacha. And that's where we have to look. So you might say, oh, but my mind is different than the halacha. I need to first understand the halacha. I need to first understand the halacha is God's will. It's not some other human being's will. It's the Eivishter's will. So really, I need to drill myself in and understand the halacha. I need to humble myself to halacha, and then I can come to a truthful conclusion. But I can't come to a truthful conclusion if I really don't understand the halacha. If I really don't understand the law. That completes the sikha of today. I wish you all a good day. Went over the hour. God bless you all. Have a wonderful and beautiful day.